Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage our ALEC National Chairman, West Virginia Senator Patricia Rucker.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you. It's great to see so many familiar faces and many new ones as well. One of the things I love most about ALEC is the way we come together to face tough issues head on. Issues that aren't always popular, aren't always easy, but are always important. Before we begin today's program, let's take a moment to pause and ask for guidance and wisdom. Joining us to lead this morning's prayer is Pam Russell, National Director of Women's Ministries at the Capitol Commission. Come on up.
I was wondering what music you'd choose for a chaplain. Thank you. Well, good morning. I want to welcome you. I'm probably not the first, and I won't be the last, to welcome you to the great state of Indiana and the city of Indianapolis. As you can see from all the checkered flags around, we are famous for being called the racing capital of the world. We're really good at hosting sports as well. So with the I'll get it right, yes. So we are the racing capital of the world. Speedway is on our doorstep here. I hope you get a chance to go and visit the Speedway and the museum. And also, if you're in Indiana, it means it's basketball. In our state, you'll see basketball hoops up and down, and in every driveway, basketball. Indiana, it's basketball. And of course, at the moment, basketball fever, if you get my drift, is in full swing. But there's a couple of things you may not have known about Indiana. And one is that we are the #1 popcorn producer in the US. So we have just nudged Nebraska into second place. Sorry, Nebraska. And so be sure and pick up some Indiana popcorn before you leave. Also, our limestone. We are famous for our limestone. There are many, US monuments and buildings that have been built with Indiana limestone. For example, the Pentagon, the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C., the new Yankee Stadium, the Tribune Tower in Chicago, and 35 of our 50 state houses are built with Indiana limestone. Just across the way here, where I serve as chaplain in our Indiana State House, built with limestone. Now, originally it was built with Tennessee limestone, but it collapsed after a few years. Sorry, Tennessee. So we rebuilt it with Indiana limestone, and it's still here 120 years later. Our text for today, our scripture for the day, is taken from Psalm 34. It was written by David, the man anointed by God to rule his people, Israel, and become king. But maybe you can identify with a couple of things that he says. He experienced years of opposition from the then current king who tried to kill him. He faced challenges from within and without his own party, his own tribe. Before he became king, though, David acknowledged a king higher than himself, Jehovah God, King of heaven and earth. And he trusted that that king, his king, always heard his prayers and delivered him. He governed a nation with deep cracks and divisions. He was called the Light of Israel because David illumined the land with good and godly leadership. And as the sweet psalmist of Israel, David recorded his prayers, his joys and sorrows, and we today can still find comfort and encouragement in them. Let me read from the text. I will bless the Lord at all times. His praise shall continually be in my mouth. My soul shall make her boast in the Lord. The humble shall hear thereof and be glad. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. I sought the Lord, and he heard me, and delivered me from all my fears. They looked unto him, and were enlightened, and their faces were not ashamed. This poor man cried, and the Lord heard him, and saved him out of all his troubles. The angel of the Lord encampeth around them that fear him, and delivereth them. O taste and see that the Lord is good. Blessed is the man that trusteth in him. O fear the Lord, ye his saints, for there is no want to them that fear him. The eyes of the Lord are upon the righteous, and his ears are open to their cry. The Lord redeems the soul of his servants, and none of them that trust him shall be desolate. Let's pray. Lord, as we gather here this week with fellow legislators, we ask you, make our time here profitable as we exchange ideas and practices. We ask you, give us your wisdom and favor as we seek to take those good ideas and practices and establish them in our respective states. Help us find encouragement here amongst fellow legislators to press on with the work which we have been called to do. Help us find our strength in you when we face opposition from within and without. And prompt us to look to you at all times for the equipping that we need to serve you and the people of our 50 great states. Thank you that when everyone looks to us for help, we can depend on you to help us, help them. Oh, magnify the Lord with me, and let us exalt his name together. Thank you for the food that we have had, and we pray you bless the hands that have prepared it. And we ask this all in the name of the King of Kings and Lord of Lords. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pam. That was just amazing. As state legislators, we each have our own unique challenges. For some of you, it might be education policy and empowering parents. For others, it might be tax reform or trying to get the burdensome government regulations from businesses' backs. In my own state of West Virginia, energy has been at the heart of who we are. Our families, our towns, our entire economy is built on energy production, coal, and natural gas. It's in our lifeblood. Protecting our local energy industry means protecting jobs, families, and entire communities. But in recent years, protecting our energy future has required standing up to powerful interests, including those who seek to reshape markets not through consumer choice or innovation, but through manipulation and political pressure and outside agendas. It means making tough decisions that often run counter to the narratives we see coming from Wall Street or Washington or the Main Street media. Confronting powerful interests and choosing principle over popularity is nothing new to me, or I imagine to many of you. In fact, making difficult choices is something I learned at a very young age. Growing up in Venezuela, I witnessed firsthand what happens when a government promises everything and delivers nothing. My family saw their freedoms eroded, their opportunities disappear, and it was heartbreaking. Once successful, beautiful, thriving, safe country has become a place that is almost impossible to live and survive. Freedom, once lost, is very hard to reclaim. When I moved to the United States, I carried that lesson with me, first as a teacher, then as a mother, and now as a state senator. I've seen the difference that honest government can make, especially when we have the courage to speak clearly and act decisively. As a teacher, I saw students who needed better opportunities, families who needed choice, schools struggling under the weight of way too many regulations and rules, and too little accountability. As a legislator, I saw taxpayers struggling under unfair tax burdens, small businesses choked by unnecessary regulations, and energy workers fearful for their future and their families. Taking on these issues in West Virginia has not always made me popular with certain crowds. That's an understatement. But doing what's right often means standing alone, at least for a little while. Eventually, others will follow. And why is that? Because courage and principle are contagious. That's why I value ALEC so much. ALEC doesn't just talk about issues, we equip state leaders to address them head on. Through model policies, expert briefings, and legislative academies, ALEC provides the tools we need to understand these complicated issues and to tackle them effectively back home. Whether it is tax reform, school choice, healthcare transparency, protecting our economies from the distortions caused by ESG pressures, ALEC gives us the resources we need to do the right thing, the hard thing, even when it goes against the grain. This morning, we're fortunate to have with us someone who personifies this kind of courage and clarity. As Executive Director of Consumers Research, Will Hyde has stood up to some of the most powerful institutions in the world, shedding light on hidden agendas and helping protect the freedom of American consumers, investors, and workers. Will understands that economic pressures belong in the hands of families, not in the hands of proxy advisors or politically motivated investors. His work has helped lawmakers, regulators, and citizens across the country recognize how ESG frameworks are quietly reshaping our economy in ways voters never asked for and didn't approve. And it's making an impact. Thanks to Will and Consumers Research, companies are waking up to the consequences of their misguided decisions and starting to course correct. Just last week, yet another financial institution announced its decision to withdraw from the Net Zero Banking Alliance. Yes. It's proof that when you shine a light on these issues, you can move the needle. He is here not only to share his insights, but also to help us recognize a legislator who shares these values and has demonstrated the courage to lead in their own state. Please join me in giving a warm ALEC welcome to our good friend, Will Hyde.
Thank you. That was incredible. And frankly, we should have coordinated better because you better articulated all the things that I had planned to come up here and talk about that I'm going to right now. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Will Hill. I run a group called Consumers Research, as you just heard. It's the nation's oldest consumer protection organization, founded in 1929 by a gentleman who wrote a book called 100 Million Guinea Pigs, because that was the population of the United States at the time. And what he saw was that the market, the corporations and companies, were dumping products onto shelves without testing them for safety or efficacy. And so effectively, every American was a guinea pig for these companies. And instead of running to the government and trying to get a regulation passed or laws or get himself deputized to be the police officer of this market, he decided to start the first product review magazine in the United States. And that magazine, Consumers Bulletin, ran for a number of decades until it was overtaken by the market itself. And now we have things like Yelp and Google reviews and Amazon star ratings, and we don't need that as much. But in this new iteration, Consumers Research has been focused on making sure that we maintain a focus on the consumer in corporate America. And unfortunately, I'm sad to say that we have, over the last couple decades, seen dangers to that focus coming from some areas of the market itself, and particularly from the financial services industry. ESG, its proponents will tell you it's defined by an investment strategy or a scoring system. They will try to up the expense ratios on the ETFs that you buy that have that term in it. The real definition of ESG is when the financial services industry tries to use its market share to force through economic and social policy on the country without ever having to meet it at the ballot box. And while that may sound very alarming, and it is, and we're fighting it, I always like to note that it is actually a sign of the success of the people in this room, because they went to the ballot box first, and they didn't win. And they tried again and again and again, from things like the Green New Scam to carbon taxes. And at each point, this side, the people in this room, kept that from happening. And so they had to go back to the drawing board and come up with a more surreptitious way to try and force that down our throats. And that's when they came up with ESG, where you have large banks, large asset managers, large insurers, and some of the proxy advisors, which most of us have probably never even heard of, basically forcing corporations, C-suites that just want to focus on making money and serving their consumers to instead focus on the personal politics of people like Larry Fink at BlackRock. And so we've been engaged over a 5-year period since 2020 on pushing back against this, making sure that these companies are fulfilling their fiduciary duty and their shareholder primacy requirement, making sure that they are not committing securities fraud, as some of the asset managers have now been marked as doing by certain securities commissioners. And so we've been in this fight pushing back, because the reason we have corporations, as much as I know, hopefully I don't get too much trouble here, the reason we have corporations isn't to make people rich. It's to make our country prosperous by serving consumers. And we allow people to get rich off of that because we found that it's the best incentive to get them to serve consumers. We want to make sure that's the focus. We want people being served as consumers and people getting rich doing so. And so that's why Consumers Research exists. And so 5 years ago, we started something called the Consumers Champion Award. You can tell, by the way, that it was created during the period of Antifa, right? So we're ready. We want it to be a functional award, ready to go. And so each year, ALEC allows us to present to the legislator of the year who has done the most, in our estimation, to push back on the scourge of ESG and also other consumer protections. And I'm proud to report that this year's recipient is Oklahoma Representative Mark LePack. Mr. Representative... Representative LePack has done an outstanding job over his tenure in the Oklahoma legislature, pushing back on ESG. He has led the way on bills making sure that asset managers have to follow their fiduciary duty when investing the state's funds. He's made sure that light was shown on this area. That's one of the areas that I think that as legislators, I think you probably underestimate how much power you have just in highlighting these issues. And he held a hearing bringing in some of the experts from across the country on this issue. But he's also not limited himself just to ESG. He passed a fantastic bill that helped regulate these crypto ATMs that you see, which, as somebody who's about to turn 40 here in about 2 months, I used to understand all that stuff, and now I don't. So I really appreciate that somebody's coming along and making sure that I don't get defrauded. So I'm going to shut up now because I want to make sure he has as much time to speak, but he's done a just incredible job. Oh, I should name one other thing. He also helped create the framework for lowering and hopefully one day eliminating the Oklahoma income tax, which I'm no tax expert like Art Laffer, but I've heard that consumers that have more money buy more things. So always good for consumers when they have more cash in their pocket. So Representative, you could come up here.
That ought to be a lot of fun with TSA tomorrow night. Thank you, Will. Senator Rucker, you and I have something in common. I lived in Venezuela when I was very small, before we moved to Bolivia. Folks, this is quite an honor and quite unexpected. When Will called, he said he wanted to do this. I said, why, you know? He said, I'll tell you at the meeting. But he got me thinking. I never really considered myself a consumer-oriented legislator. When I ran for office, My interest was Article 5, getting control of spending, tax policy, the pro-life movement, those kinds of things that so many of us are into. But my conversation with Will got me thinking. Senator Rucker elaborated on this so well. I hope it's not repetitive, but I'm going to make these comments a little bit more personal. I'll take you down a short detour down memory lane, and I promise we'll end up back here at ALEC. But I turned 12 years old in 1968. Remember the 60s? And for those of you that are too young, think the Vietnam War and draft, assassinations of Kennedys and MLK, think civil rights and riots, Kent State, Nixon's return to D.C., think Ralph Nader, if we're thinking about consumer issues. At that time, Oklahoma City had 2 newspapers delivered each day. As a 12-year-old, I was just absorbing that stuff. That was my thing. But at the time, and really most of my life, the national issues are what consumed me. That's what I was really paying attention to. That and OU Sooner football. But you know, life moves on, and after a career in the private sector in telecommunications, I ran for this position and won, and was immediately reunited with my 9th grade basketball coach, Gary Bands, who is now former state representative and a former ALEC board member. And the first thing he told me when we saw each other at the Capitol was, "You need to join ALEC." And then he kind of said, "You need to join ALEC." So when the coach calls the play, you say okay, and you run the play. At the time, I'd never heard of ALEC. So I was delighted. Right away, I got here and found what I would call my policy home. There's so many answers to our state problems, ideas to be considered for possible use back home. Ideas from other states, from various analysts, policy experts, members of all stripes like you and me. I find like-minded people in a place for the free exchange of ideas where we could freely debate and test these ideas, but also we were free from some of the political repercussions that can occur back in a state house or even within a caucus. I also learned that many of our nation's problems could be addressed in the states. ALEC's focus on policy, its unique structure, marrying the public and private sector perspectives and expertise, guided by its focus on the slogan you all know, limited government, free markets, and federalism. And we can't say that often enough to remind ourselves and all of our friends that that's what we should be about. ALEC provides well-vetted, practical solutions to so many problems, and I'm delighted to be a part of it. As I stated, I never thought of myself as a consumer-oriented legislator. But my work, I'm a pension chairman, banking, financial services, and pensions back home. And my work on our pension liabilities and their fiscal health led me to this discussion on ESG and to ALEC's pension protection model legislation. It made so much sense, and that's what I like about ALEC. A lot of the things that we read and talk about here just make sense. And so in the realm of pensions, is it so much to ask that our pension dollars, those tax dollars contributed by state employees and the agencies, be invested without some political agenda, risking the returns we deserve? And so it makes me think maybe I am a consumer guy after all. Will mention some other things, and I'll just stop there and close and say thank you for the honor. I really appreciate it. But I have this feeling of gratitude. Gratitude to ALEC for its structure and the leadership it provides. Gratitude to Coach Bands for giving me a direct order almost my first day at the Capitol. And then gratitude to you for showing up year after year after year and growing our numbers. It gets better and better, doesn't it? Thank you very much.
Please welcome back to the stage ALEC National Chair, West Virginia Senator Patricia Rucker.
I'm not from Venezuela, and I'm not Patricia Rucker. But other than that, we're all good. Thank you so much, Representative LePeck. You have been a standard bearer. And thanks to Will Hild for the work that you're doing, our newest peak board member. We're glad to have you on board. You know, you've been exposing and rolling back the impacts of ESG, and congratulations to you on all of that. But we know that winning on policy is not enough. We have to win the communications battle as well. And that's where Debbie Myers comes in, the Informing America Foundation, and they are stepping up in a big, big way. Debbie is leading a groundbreaking effort to connect conservative voices and organizations, making sure that the truth comes out in a media landscape that too often ignores it. The Informing America Foundation delivers high-quality investigative journalism to local and national media outlets in order to educate the public on key policy issues. With more than 2,000 hyper-local media platforms and 10 national platforms, their reach now extends to more than 50 million people, bringing principled, fact-based reporting to communities that need it most. Assisting her in this effort is Julian Barron as the managing editor of Off the Press. He's not only fighting misinformation, but is also helping to build an ecosystem of accountability, truth, and transparency. They are also the most recent winners of our Peterson Prize at the ALEC conference back in December. You may remember them. Please join me in welcoming Debbie and Julian.
I love this entry music. I think it's fun to come on out to it. Great to see all of you. We were honored to win the Peterson Prize last December. Very honored to receive that. And I want to tell you a little bit more about the work of Informing America Foundation and one of our great achievements, Off the Press, and how we would love to extend this to all of you to get your messages out. So Informing America Foundation was started about 5 years ago to fight back on suppression of news, and as I'm sure you're aware of, just this erosion of trust in our sacred news media. People just lost trust and faith in it. So we wanted to find a way to fund, support, and organize great investigative journalists, not only on the national level, but on the local level, because that is one of the most trusted aspects of media, is your local news and your state level. So Informing America is a group of local, state, national journalists, media companies. We have a whistleblower center, we have a FOIA center, and we have a great communications team that every month takes what's happening in the news, does research fact papers that gives both sides of the stories, gives links to the facts, and we disseminate that to journalists and influencers all across the country so that people have truth, they have facts, they have source-based material. This year we started a video exchange. We take and we provide free of charge to anybody that wants to use it, left, right, or center, a video clipping service of everything happening up on the Hill. It's white labeled, so anyone can put their branding on it. We share it with the House. We would share it with legislators. You're free to take that on your website, give to your constituents, share on social media, because video is the most powerful tool. We look to see, I come from the entertainment world myself, having run cable networks my entire life, but wanted to make a change and give back to people. So my understanding is audiences and how you reach them. One of the most important things that I think we as a whole need to reach are our Hispanic community and our younger generations. So we created an entity that you're going to see a graphic come up that all of you are free to use called offthepress.com. And it is a news aggregator, again, on the local, state, national level, that not only has a website, we're developing an app, but our reach, as Julian will share with you, on social media, we're able to go where the audiences go. And the numbers that Lisa shared, we've blown away now that we've extended to social media. Because it's important to get all the great work that's going out there, all the great investigative reporting out into the hands of younger audiences who get their news sources from social media. So we'd like to invite all of you, as you make news, share your news stories. We will amplify it across our entire spectrum. If you have press releases, you can share that, and we can see if we can get it out to different outlets. If you see a national story that you've got a state or local angle, let us know, and we will help connect the dots, or vice versa, a local story or a state story that you think should be elevated to the national level. Julian's going to share with you a little bit more about Off the Press and the amazing strides that he's done. We stole Julian away from Sinclair Broadcasting, where he was leading the social media efforts there, and he's made a huge difference for us at Off the Press. Julian.
Thank you very much, Debbie. You know, this year, for the first time ever, more news consumers in this country are getting their news from social media than any other source. Think about that. For those of you that have spent your lives reading newspapers, watching television, getting your news from those sources, there are more people in this country today that are picking up their phones, going to Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and other social media platforms, and that's how they're getting their news. Off the Press is all about meeting the moment, meeting consumers where they are. One thing we understand is that we're not going to be able to change the way that reality is. The reality is that's where people are getting their news. We know we need to be there. And I'm very excited to say that in the first 5 months of a little bit of a change at Off the Press, and again, thrilled to be here, we have increased our social media following tremendously. We are this month going to probably, projected to, reach 100 million people on social media. And we think that the sky is the limit for Off the Press moving forward. Because what we understand is that consumers expect content to be delivered to them on the platforms that they are using. And the outlets that capitalize on that truth are the ones that are going to be the most successful, not only in terms of their businesses moving forward, but also in terms of their reach and their influence. At Off the Press, we strive to be the outlet that people turn to on every platform that they use, including our website. So if you are a web user, please do feel free to head over to offthepress.com, shameless plug, and join us and share your stories with us. I believe there's a QR code that was popping up on the side of the screen there. You can submit stories to us, because here's one very simple truth, in addition to the fact that people are using social media, is that I only have 2 eyes. And so I can't be everywhere all the time, nor can our team. That's why we rely on folks like you to share stories with us from the communities where you live, so that we can feature them on Off the Press and amplify them in a meaningful and effective way. So we appreciate all of the help that you can give us on that front. But the truth remains, the folks that win and dominate on social media are the folks that are going to win and dominate on the narrative and the news of the future. That's who we are at Off the Press. And with the tremendous support of Debbie and everybody at IAF and everybody in our ecosystem, we are very proud to say that we are on the trajectory to success, we believe, and we know that everybody in this room and everybody affiliated with ALEC and at ALEC is going to be tremendously helpful in helping us achieve those goals. So thank you to everybody here, thank you to Debbie, and we look forward to seeing you in the news of the future. Thank you.
Please welcome back to the stage ALEC Chief Executive Officer Lisa B. Nelson.
That's awesome. Thank you, guys. We're going to keep it rolling because we want to be sure to stay on time. Thank you so much for the incredible work you guys are doing to build that platform. I know our ALEC communications team gets together with Debbie and with Julian on an almost, I think it's daily basis now, which is just incredible. So if you have organizations that you're working with and you want to be a part of that ecosystem, please let us know and let Debbie know. Next, I want to introduce someone that I've had the privilege of calling a friend, Scott Rasmussen. What you see on camera and what you read in his polling work is exactly who he is in real life. He's honest, he's curious, he's principled, and deeply committed to understanding the American people and what they're thinking about. Scott is one of the most respected public opinion pollsters in the country and has spent decades taking the pulse of the nation and not just tracking political trends, but revealing the deeper values that shape our culture and what drives our elections. Scott has built a reputation as someone you can trust to tell it like it is. No spin, no games, just real insight backed by real data. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming one of the clearest voices in American public opinion today, Scott Rasmussen.
Well, thank you. I was told long ago that when you speak in public, you're lucky if one person remembers one thing you said 1 week later. And realizing that truth, I decided to help by providing a little study aid. And I've adapted my style to right up front telling you the one thing that I want you to remember next week at this time, and hopefully long after that. Today, the one thing is actually 3 numbers. And I apologize if you're not a numbers geek, but this is really easy. The first number is 80. The second number is 1, and the third number is 519,000. And I will come to what those 3 numbers are in just a moment, but you just need to understand these numbers are the linchpin of the fight that we're in, or how we're going to win this fight. You all are caught up in battles between Team Red and Team Blue every day, but you're also caught up in a much larger battle between a desire to return to a self-governing society where decisions are made closer to home, and a federal government that wants to put all the power guiding our society in the hands of unelected bureaucrats. That battle is the same battle our nation has been fighting from the very beginning. Now, when we start talking about that, you hear every day that we're a 50-50 nation. And I kind of get that, because for the last 40 years, we have had very close presidential elections. We have not had a landslide since 1984. No candidate has managed to win more than 53% of the vote in all of those years. It's never happened before in American history. And if you add up the more than 1 billion votes that were cast during the last 40 years for president, 49% of them went for a D, 48% of them for an R. Sounds 50-50 to me. That's the political world's look at America. If you talk to the American people, though, and you really begin to think about what drives them and what their interests are and what their passions are, it looks much different. We're actually a 10-10-80 nation. There are 10% on the right who are actively engaged in a bitter war with 10% on the left, and this is the 80 number. The 80% in between pretty much just want to keep their head down, avoid getting caught in the crossfire. They really don't want to be governed from the left or the right. They want to govern their own lives. They want to make decisions about things important to them. This 80% is challenging to reach because they don't show up at your political rallies. They don't get engaged. In fact, they don't even use the same language that we use at events like this. So one of the things I would encourage you to do is to find ways to meet people who are outside the political bubble every chance you get. My firm has just reached an agreement with Jigsaw, a division of Google. We're going to be launching a new project in conjunction with our nation's 250th birthday that will lift up the voice of this 80% in ways it's never been done before. And I would love to share that information with you. Sarah Stebe is right here in front. Sarah, stand up. If you want to hear more about this project and learn about that 80%, just be in touch with Sarah and we'll make sure we keep you in the loop on that. But this 80% is who you should be trying to reach. It's fun to own the other team in a social media fight. It's fun to do other things and win a political battle. And it's awesome when you can do something like give parents the choice of where their kids go to school. When you do that, you're turning power over to the 80% to govern their own lives. So that's the first number. The next number, 1. It's for the elite 1%. My firm was commissioned by Steve Moore and the Committee to Unleash Prosperity a little over a year ago to do some research into this group. The elite 1%, extraordinarily influential. They live in densely populated urban areas. They make a lot of money. And most important, they have a postgraduate degree. Postgraduates are more out of touch with the rest of America than any other segment of our society. Just to give you a sense of it, you all have heard of the diploma divide. It's a little bit of truth in that, but the reality is the biggest divide is between postgrads and everybody else. People with a bachelor's degree have views more like those without a degree. Last year, Kamala Harris won the postgraduate vote by 30 percentage points. The rest of America voted for Donald Trump. Narrowly, but there's a real gap there. And when we looked at this elite 1%, what we found was chilling because these people are influential, they drive media narratives, they drive a lot of our political discussion. 47% of them believe that the rest of us have too much individual freedom. And among the politically active elites, those who engage daily, 69% of them believe we have too much individual freedom. Pretty depressing numbers. Another odd thing about them, at least odd from the world that I come from, is 70% of them trust the federal government to do the right thing most of the time. A majority of Americans haven't had that much trust since 1972. This group also thinks we should ban private ownership of handguns, and they think we should ban a lot of other things beyond just gas stoves and things you heard about to fight climate change. So this elite 1%, wildly out of touch, very influential. They are driving a narrative, and they are creating a political fog of war that confuses the 80% who aren't following politics every day. They force you to pick one side or the other. Our role should be to fight for the 80%. That means we fight against the 1%. And that's where 519,000 comes in. You were a part of that group. There are 519,000 state and local elected officials in America today. Just over 7,000 of them are state legislators, more than 80,000 are school board members. There's all kinds of positions in 87,000 local governing bodies. State and local elected officials need to find ways creatively to take back power from the federal government, one small step at a time, one day after another. And the basic idea, and I'll just tell a quick story and then explain how it applies to what you can do on a daily basis. On July 2nd, 1881, I wasn't polling at that point, but James Garfield was President of the United States. He was going to go take a summer vacation at the Jersey Shore, and he got to Union Station and got shot by an assassin. He didn't die right away. He survived 2.5 months, and his wound wasn't all that bad. There were Civil War soldiers still walking around 16 years after the fighting with similar wounds, but the president had the best medical authorities treating him. They didn't think leaving the bullet in the president was a good habit. So they spent 2 months trying to find a bullet and take it out of his body. They didn't believe in these new theories of germs and sanitation. So a dozen different doctors reached into the president's body with their hands without washing them, without cleaning them at all, and they gave him an infection that killed him. At the end of the day, the man who shot him said, "Well, I shot the president, but the doctors killed him." We can laugh about that, but what happened next was amazing. After the story, after all of this happened and it came out, the medical community in America began to realize what had gone on, and they made a very simple change in their procedures. They washed their hands before meeting a patient. The impact of that simple change was that when Garfield was shot, the average life expectancy in America was in the mid-40s. Within a couple of decades, it was more than 60. By washing their hands, they increased the average life expectancy of an American by more than 15 years. And I want to suggest that every state and local elected official in America should adopt another similar type of boring, repetitive, routine practice. Before you discuss any policy issue and how you should resolve it, before you talk about what should be done, begin every meeting, begin every agenda item, begin every topic, every time you meet with constituents by asking, who decides? Is this something that the federal government should be deciding, or is it something we should be deciding? Or if you're a state legislator, maybe we should turn it back to the local communities or to the individuals, as has been done with education choice. If you begin to ask that question of who decides on a day-in, day-out basis, once you begin to find out that the answer is not the federal government, come up with a creative way to bring decision-making closer to home. Alexander Hamilton said that the only way you can control a government is to make ambition counteract ambition. You need to make the ambitions of the 80%. You need to make the ambitions of state and local governments counteract the overreach of our federal government. And if you can do that day in and day out, there will be some great victories, there will be some discouraging days, but there will be a lot of little bits of progress, and you will have done your part to ensure that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from this earth. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back ALEC CEO Lisa B. Nelson.
Thank you, Scott. What a great commercial for ACE, our American City County Exchange. Hopefully Andre Cushing is in the room and taking notes for that. That's fantastic. Our final presentation gives me a lot of pleasure and fun. It's a joy to introduce our next two speakers. I have had the honor of working alongside Dr. Arthur Laffer for the last 11 years as CEO of ALEC, and he's someone I consider a brilliant economist, a good friend, and he keeps me laughing all the time. He's a legend in the world of economics and public policy, not just because of his role as co-author of our 18 editions of Rich States, Poor States, but because of his famous story. You know, Arthur sketching the Laffer curve on a back of a napkin in the late 1970s, or in the 70s, explaining that the simplest way possible of how to tax traits impact economic behavior. That little napkin that I think you might have on your table changed the course of economic policy, inspired the Reagan Revolution, and remains one of the most impactful economic insights of our time. Arthur has advised presidents, governors, legislators around the world, but what I've always admired most about his boundless energy and his love of teaching and his tireless commitment to policies that help people thrive is that he does it with such grace and humor. If you've ever had the pleasure of hearing him speak, which you will now, you know that Arthur makes economics not just understandable, but fun. And today, we actually are joined by his grandchildren who are here, and Allison, his daughter, and our second bonus speaker is one of his own family members, his son-in-law, who's carrying forward the same passion for good policy. Michigan State Senator Jonathan Lindsay is not only a rising star in public service, but Arthur's son-in-law. Senator Lindsay has quickly become a conservative leader in Michigan, fighting for limited government, economic opportunity, and personal freedom. Please join me in welcoming Arthur Laffer and Jonathan Lindsay to the stage. big comfy seat for
They
you,
are comfy.
Arthur.
Yes, they are.
I hope you're comfortable.
John?
Welcome. Welcome to the big stage. Arthur is very familiar with this. Senator Lindsay, maybe this is your first time?
It is.
We have had 50 years of the Laffer curve. And Dr. Laffer, you have been at the forefront of that economic policy, advising presidents from Reagan, as I said in the introduction, to now Donald Trump, most recently. Tell us a little bit about the arc of your advice and counsel to these public officials and what you're most excited about.
Can I first say something about
Of course.
being here? Just quickly, the chaplain, beautiful prayer. I loved it. If you like auto races, if you like basketball, if you like limestone public structures, visit Indiana. If you like no income tax and right to work enshrined in your Constitution, come on to Tennessee. Just what I said. It's fun. I don't know. It's been fun. The Laffer curve and all of that has been around for 1,000 years or more. It's in the Muqaddimah, Ibn Khaldun. It goes way back. I did not name it the Laffer curve. That was Jude Winniski. But it had not been in vogue in the 1960s and 1970s. It really was not in vogue. If you raise tax rates 10%, you raise revenues 10%. That was the end of it. We brought it back into vogue with Ronald Reagan and Prop 13, of course, in California before Reagan. So far, it's been doing pretty well. I mean, if you look at it, whenever you raise the highest tax rate, as this little book says, on the top 1% of income earners, 3 things happen. Number 1, the economy underperforms. If you raise the highest tax rate on the top 1% of income earners, tax revenues from the top 1% of income earners goes down. And number 3, if you raise the highest marginal income tax rate on the top 1% of income earners, the poor get hammered. That is clear from the entire history of the income tax. This is a book that I wrote with Dr. Brian Dimitrovic and Dr. Gene Sinkfield, and it's all there. And it just goes on. The whole history of taxes is what happened. Look at California. Awful tax structure everywhere except one little thing, property taxes. And if you look at California, its entire prosperity, and it has prosperity, is because of Proposition 13. I could go on, but I'll stop there.
Well, that's wonderful. What he's pointing to is this book, Taxes Have Consequences. And I think it was last year, Arthur, that we sent this to almost every legislator, or every Republican legislator that was an ALEC member. So if you don't have a copy of this book, it chronicles the history of taxation. It's really a fascinating book, and I know Brian is here as well. But it's really a fascinating book. If you want a copy, let us know and we'll get you one. But I think you are also the author of Wealth of States, and you're working on a second volume of Wealth of States. Is that right?
We are. We're working on that, and we're doing something big in Britain as well, a huge project in the UK. So we're keeping busy.
I think you are. Senator Lindsay, you just joined the political fray in the last, I don't know how many years, but you're 2023. What was it that got you off the sidelines, aside from a father-in-law that was probably encouraging you a lot? But what motivated you, and what got you to run for office and take things into your own hands?
He did encourage me, but my entrance into politics is also related just on the facts that you see in things like taxes have consequences. I had lived in 6 different states, largely because of military service, and the last of those was actually Tennessee. But I'm from Michigan originally, and so I moved back to Michigan, much to his chagrin. Took his daughter with me. And simply by moving from Tennessee to Michigan, without any other major changes, I kept the same job, bought a smaller house, my taxes went through the roof. And as an adult, you see this in a totally different light, trying to raise a family and decide what's best. I'm happy to be there. I love Michigan. I love my family, extended family. But it really demonstrates what Dr. Laffer's written about so long. A state like Tennessee is growing like gangbusters, whereas Michigan is struggling because we don't have those proper policies in place. We had a lot of work over, from 2010 to 2018, where Republicans in particular had a more pro-growth mindset, were adopting some policies and making progress. But lately, it's been going exactly the opposite direction, and it's not a pro-growth environment there right now. So I decided to get off the sidelines, jump in, run, and be one of those voices trying to advocate for positive change.
Well, thankfully, Michigan was one of the only, it was the only state that flipped a chamber in this last election in 2024. So congratulations. I think Speaker Matt Hall is here and his delegation on the House side, but we need to flip that chamber in the Senate, right, in the next election.
That's
so
right.
that you guys can be in the majority. Michigan ranks 19th, I believe, in economic outlook in rich states, poor states. Are you thinking about kind of building up to what you're going to try to do when you get that majority, and hopefully a Republican governor?
Where is Speaker Hall? We need him to come answer this question. But I think, look, the cool thing is that it's not hard to come up with the policies that work. All of you have done it for so long. It's more about coming up with the electoral victories that put the right people in place and then having the conviction to follow through. Speaker Hall has done something incredible in just, this year of standing strong on a lot of the principles that he's fought for years as an ALEC member, instead of just caving and saying, let's just do whatever the Democrats want. But that's what it's going to take in 26 is getting, enough people in the right positions who believe in these foundational principles that Alex espoused for a long time, and then having the conviction to move them forward. And I'm very encouraged that we have that opportunity. Like you said, the Republicans flipped the House this last cycle, and I think we can do the same thing and take the governor's mansion, or at least get people there that believe in the same things we do, and then follow through. Get right to work back, get rid of prevailing wage. Our tax rate, we had a short-term cut based on some ALEC policy that triggered a tax cut, but then the Democrats took it right back up. So we know what works. We just have to have the right people and the conviction to follow them forward.
Absolutely, that's wonderful. So we've spent a lot of time looking at and thinking about this big, beautiful bill in Washington. I know that a lot of folks here and our legislators have signed our ALEC letter encouraging the Congress and the House to pass that bill. And as it went through, there was all kinds of issues like the SALT deductions and other things that we were paying very close attention to at ALEC. Dr. Laffer, what is your thought on that bill, and how do you think that sets up the president for the last 3 years of his term?
I'm going to interject a little comment first. I mean, eat your heart out, people. Can you imagine having a son-in-law, Special Forces, Green Beret, Yale grad? How's that for cool? State senator, married my number 6, my youngest daughter, and sired 3 wonderful, wonderful grandchildren. I mean, it does not get any better than that, believe me. Now, back to real public. The BBB. Donald Trump.
Never mind, we just want to hear about the grandkids.
The grandkids have to be somewhere around here.
We're in the back.
They're in the back. They're
right back
woohoo.
there.
And my daughter, Allison Laffer Lindsay is absolutely the most spectacular person in partnership with John, just the team of the century. I mean, really seriously. Now, the BBB is Trump's latest victory. He now owns this economy. Literally, he does. He got his budgets, he's got his tax cuts, he's got all of that. Obviously, there are a lot of little things here, there, and elsewhere, but he got all of his cabinet, with the exception of Matt Gaetz. And I'm not sure he wanted that one either. But he's got his cabinet, he's got this now is the Trump economy. And we are here to see what's going to happen. The way I look at it, he's fully in charge. The way I look at it, you'll have to look at the five kingdoms of prosperity, taxes. We've got lower rates, broader base, flatter taxes. We've even got it on tips and overtime and on interest on car loans. I mean, it's just great. We've got government spending. The president's got his spending. He's got his border money. He's got his defense money. He's got all of that. He's got just what he wants there. If you look at monetary policy very shortly, we're going to replace Powell with a good Fed chairman who will be able to run on a monetary standard. And it will be Donald Trump's choice on that one all the way. Regulatory, we've decontrolled energy. We're going to have price transparency, which is really important. And God bless Lisa Nelson for pushing price transparency, and Cynthia Fisher, she got the award, the Alec Laffer Award, if I remember
Talk
correctly.
about that next.
And
yeah.
it's just phenomenal what's been done there. And finally, trade policy. I'm not sure how trade's going to work out. He scares the living hell out of me. He reminds me of a Calistoga wagon coming down a hill without a rider, with just the horses running over rocks and bumps, and you're jolted. If you think it's ever going to stop, you are wrong. It is going to. The smoke will never clear. The dust will never settle. You are going to be in that Calistoga wagon running over rocks and bumps for the full time of Donald Trump. But all of that having been said, I could not be more optimistic about what's going to happen. It reminds me very much of the beginning of the Reagan Revolution. Reagan made a mistake of phasing in the tax cuts, which slowed and then the economy took. From January 1st, 1983, until June 30th, 1984, real GDP grew by 12% at an 8% per annum compound rate. That's Chinese growth rates. You won't get that coming off Trump because we didn't have the big dip down. But I am expecting very great prosperity, rapid growth in GDP, and prosperity to hit all groups in the society. And I think it's here for a long, long time to come. So that's my view of the world.
Is that what we call the golden age?
It's the second golden age of it's the second golden age of my lifetime, and I'm really excited. So I decided, being 85 years old, I've decided that I want to live another 52 years so I can see it fully come out. So I have just declared that my death date will be in 52 years from now when I'm 137 years old. Just put it like that.
Well, if we can come up with the medical miracles that Scott Rasmussen talked about, and if the doctors can find another new way of washing their hands, maybe we can do that for you.
Oh, I've done it. I mean, it's locked. You can count on that one. You guys have to worry about your health, but I'm here for the long haul.
He's in it for the long haul. You mentioned medical transparency, and that is something that Alec has been working on and partnered with Cynthia Fisher and the Patients' Rights Advocates Group for now, I think, 3 or 4 years. I know that it's kind of sweeping the country. Jonathan, Senator Lindsay, you have carried or have an interest in that bill. Tell us a little bit about what your hopes are for that.
Yeah, I'm optimistic about it. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think 3 states this year or in the last year have adopted state-level policy on medical price transparency. Unfortunately, as a Michigander, Ohio is one of those, so I hate it when they get ahead of us on policy. But it's something I've worked on since I started. I think it's foundational. I think building out an environment where people can make more informed decisions and treat medical care more like a transaction we're used to, where you can shop for services, see how much they cost, see what the value is. I've led in legislation on it. Actually, in a Democrat-led Senate, we did get a bill through with initially unanimous vote. But unfortunately, we have a lot more work to do because what our goal is to match the ALEC model legislation, which has a really good comprehensive approach to this. And so it'll be a work in progress, but I see positive signs in Michigan because there's been interest from both parties saying this is something that could really serve the people well.
Yeah, it's been really interesting. We talked about it when we were in Denver last year. It's a bipartisan, nonpartisan issue, and it's been passing in states like Colorado and Virginia and Rhode Island, in addition to being looked at in Ohio like it was a red state. But really, really interesting dynamics. And who's not for medical transparency? Who doesn't want to know what the cost of your services are? And I know, Dr. Laffer, you want to kind of add it to our rich states, poor states analysis because the economic impact is so big.
Yeah, it's huge. I mean, it's 17% of GDP. If you look at U.S. life expectancy relative to the OECD from 1970 on, and if you look at U.S. costs relative to the OECD from 1970 on, it's what puts out on a plot what I call le croix de santé, which is the cross of health. Our life expectancy relative to OECD has been dropping like a stone, and our costs relative to the OECD have been rising like a star in the heaven. It's just amazing how bad U.S. policy is on healthcare, and it's tragic that we're losing all those lives and spending all that money and getting negative results. We need price transparency where people know what the prices are. They know what the consequences of medical actions are. They're published. They're required to be published so we can bring a marketplace back into healthcare and we can reverse those trends dramatically. Let me tell you what one of the biggest enemies is. It's something called HIPAA. HIPAA is not there to protect patients' privacy. HIPAA is there to protect hospitals from disclosing what their prices are and how they're ripping you off and how other medical procedures are doing the same thing. It's really shocking what's happening. I was chairman of the board of Centennial Hospital, if any of you know of it, in Nashville. It's the flagship for HCA. What you guys don't know about doctors and healthcare and prices is unbelievable, and the change in the decisions you would make if you did know would be miraculous for this country.
Well, we're going to continue working on that. I know setting up for 2026, we're hopeful that a lot more states will take that ALEC model policy and develop it. With respect to another issue that you mentioned, property taxes, ALEC has the truth in taxation policy that we've been kind of promulgating. And you mentioned California and the property taxes there. I know that a lot of states and governors are looking at property taxes as an issue. Is that something that you're seeing take hold across the country, Dr. Laffer?
Property taxes are the silent killer of the tax system. In Tennessee, there are 433 separate property tax jurisdictions. They range from 0.5% to 3% in the state. If you know where all the high property taxes are in Tennessee, they're all in Memphis, or it's just destroyed the economy of Memphis. It has Tennessee and Nashville. We have a new mayor of Nashville, of Davidson County, and they're proposing a huge new property tax. What you're seeing is the consequences. It is a very simple thing. A property tax is a wealth tax, and as such is a discounted present value back into the value of the home. And once you've destroyed the value of the property, be it a home, a farm, industrial, or a production facility, once you've destroyed that, you've destroyed the entire production base of your state. In Detroit, for example, there are some areas of Detroit that have property tax rates upwards of 20%. If you look at Hartford and Bridgeport in Connecticut, they're upwards of 5%. Never seen worse places. There is no place that the Laffer curve applies more precisely than it does to property taxes. And we need to really get in there and get a Prop 13 for each and every state and make it guaranteed that property taxes can never grow by more than 2% per year, and that the property tax rate, the effective tax rate, can never exceed 1%. That's just absolutely essential for bringing prosperity back to a lot of states. And I'm working on that right now in Tennessee. I don't know if we'll be successful, but we were very successful in California. And politically, it's dynamite. In California in 1978, we dropped property tax rates by 60% on one day. One day, bam, they were 2.8% down to 1%. The Round Table opposed it. California Roundtable, Small Business Federation opposed it, the Democratic Party opposed it, the Republican Party opposed it, all the unions opposed it, everyone opposed it except for one little teeny tiny group, the voters. We passed that bill 65-35, and then the voters turned their guns on all the people that had opposed it and exterminated them en masse. If you want to win elections, and if you want to do the right thing, the voters are with you 100%. Property tax limitation, and don't be shy, be bold, and make it 2%, no more growth than that in property tax bills, and no more higher property tax rate than 1% effective rate, and you will have the most prosperous state around. California's sole prosperity is driven by Proposition 13, and if you go to California along the coast, you'll be amazed at how prosperous it really looks in spite of their silly income taxes, corporate taxes, and regulations. They still are doing well only because of Prop 13.
Yes, that's true. Well, we're out of time, but we have a great future in Senator Lindsay in Michigan, and hoping for that majority control. And Dr. Laffer, it's always wonderful to have you. Thank you so much for joining us.
She's my hero, by the way.
He's my hero, so it works really well. Thank you so much, and give a big round of applause for our panelists. Awesome job.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome back to the stage ALEC Chairman Patricia Rucker.
This time it is me. Thank you, Dr. Laffer, Lisa, and Senator Lindsay for that incredible discussion. Dr. Laffer, it is always an honor to have you here, and your ideas continue to shape ALEC policy and economic freedom in America. Lisa and Senator Lindsay, thank you for bringing up those great perspectives and really giving us a window into what it means in the states. This morning's session reminds us that leadership and courage begin right here in the states. ALEC provides the resources we need through model policies, academies, and powerful partnerships to take on these tough issues. As we head into today's workshops and task force meetings, please be engaged. The work you do here will help us build better solutions we can take back home. Please check your agenda for specific details. There's some things up here, and you have the app also. Thank you for your leadership and your commitment. Please continue to fight for the things that make America great. Have a great day.